You gotta check out this new Steam Deck dock. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Deck Ready, the channel all about the Steam Deck and other handheld PCs lately. Today's video is all about the Steam Deck though, and there is some really cool stuff to get into. So first of all, we gotta talk about our friends over at JSAUX. Look, I know JSAUX gets a lot of airtime here on Deck Ready, but it's really only because there's not really any other company doing what they're doing. I've previously looked at their dock, which is really good. It's basically the Steam Deck dock that Valve is making in a different little chassis. The only issue people seem to have with it is that it covers up just a little bit of the fan grill on the back of the Steam Deck, but in my testing, after using it all the time, it has not really affected the performance of any game I've tried with it. And when I use my Steam Deck like a desktop PC, I use that dock and it works great. Honestly, I keep that dock plugged in all the time because it has all the same ports as my last USB-C hub, and I use a gaming laptop as my main gaming PC. So now I just keep the JSAUX dock at my desk, and when I want to use my gaming PC, I plug it into that. When I want to use my Steam Deck, I plug it into that. They also have that 90-degree USB-C connector, which is great for the Steam Deck specifically. It's honestly my favorite Steam Deck accessory just because it makes playing in bed so much more convenient while you're charging the device, and they're like 10 bucks for two of them, which is a good deal. But this new accessory they just announced really just blows all of the rest out of the water. It's a new version of their dock. It looks pretty similar to the last one, but this new version has a slot for an M.2 SSD. We actually got a look at this about a month ago over on the JSAUX Twitter. The image made it seem like this was going to be like a new back or something for the Steam Deck that allows you to plug in an M.2 SSD that's much bigger than the 2230 drive you can actually put inside your Steam Deck at this point. But now it's very clear that this was just a dock with a full-sized M.2 slot in there, so you can have external storage when you're having your Steam Deck docked at your monitor and keyboard. So as someone who also has a PlayStation channel, and we've looked at tons of SSDs over there, when you compare the speeds of this drive to something like the one I'm putting in my PlayStation 5, it doesn't seem that fast because it only has a transfer speed of 900 megabytes per second, whereas with the PlayStation, you're dealing with like up to 7,000 megabytes per second. But as someone who also edits videos, like every Deck Ready video and every PS Ready video, I have edited off of an external SSD. This thing is basically pushing the same speeds as my external SSDs, the Samsung T7. The T7's a little bit faster at 1,000 megabits per second, but you get the idea. This thing is pretty fast even though you're connecting it through the USB-C port. So if you're wondering if you can actually play games off of this SSD that you're going to keep in the dock, I will tell you that I'm 99% certain that you will, because on my old gaming laptop, I only had 500 gigs of internal storage, and I had a couple of these T7s laying around that I wasn't using. And so I decided to just transfer my Steam library over to one that was 2 terabytes. And I used to play all of my Steam games off of a Samsung T7 connected to a USB-C port, and I never noticed a single difference between that and playing games off the internal SSD on my laptop. So with that being said, the only reason I'm saying I'm only 99% certain here is because I haven't gotten my hands on this dock yet, so I just don't actually know. But using 2 libraries, like 2 different drives for a Steam library, is totally a thing you can do. In my last generation Razer Blade, I had the Blade 15 with the 3080 in it. That computer had an extra SSD slot. The only major downside with this thing is, of course, the price. I'm sure you could have guessed that. This thing is being sold for $100 without an SSD. So you'll have to buy the dock for $100 and also pick up an NVMe drive to put inside of it. I've got a few of those things laying around from all these PS5 videos I've done, but I know that's not a common scenario for most people out there. But if you want to pick one up from them with a drive, it doesn't really seem like you're paying too much of a markup there. You can get a dock with a 1 terabyte drive for $170, and then you can get one with the 2 terabyte drive for $240. So they're not even jacking up the price. They're just doubling it for double the storage. Honestly, I wouldn't call this overpriced. Really, none of the JSAUX accessories I would call overpriced. I think most of them are fairly priced. I mean, even with those little L-shaped connectors, you get 2 of them for 10 bucks, and I guarantee you that's because it's like not economical at all to ship just one of those things. But yeah, who am I kidding? This thing obviously has a very specific user in mind, and judging by the fact that it's sold out on the JSAUX website, I'd wager a guess that a lot of people agree with me that it's not overpriced and they're having a lot of fun with their new dock that has an NVMe slot in it. I actually found out it was sold out because I went to buy one, but thankfully my Steam Deck is not hurting for memory right now. I've got the internal 1 terabyte drive, and then also I have a 1 terabyte micro SD. And if you want to see how easy it is to upgrade the SSD in your Steam Deck, I have a video here on the channel that'll walk you through the entire process. So yeah, that's the latest JSAUX accessory, which is kind of bad Honestly, it's crazy the stuff they come up with over there. I don't know where else they're going to take this, because it seems like the sky's the limit, where they have an idea and then a few weeks later they turn it around and it's already on their store. It's kind of nuts. Next up, we got to talk about the repair process for the Steam Deck, because it's about to get a whole lot better. So right now, or before now, the only options you had if you broke your Steam Deck were to try to fix it yourself by ordering parts on iFixit.com, or you could send it into Valve for an RMA. I went for the second option on one Steam Deck that I had out of the two that I've ever had. It's not like I have a big pile of them. One of them, the left shoulder button broke, so I RMA'd it. The process took around like 2 to 3 weeks. It took a little bit longer, but the best part about that was I got a brand new Steam Deck that replaced my launch unit Steam Deck, and that one was like so much better. It didn't have screen bleed. It didn't have any of the physical issues that my launch Steam Deck had. So that was a pretty big improvement at the end of the day. I've also tried to order stuff on iFixit, specifically the fan, because I originally wanted a better fan for my Steam Deck, because that launch unit that I had that I RMA'd, it had the louder fan and it was kind of annoying. So when the pre-orders went live for that good fan on iFixit, they sold out in like 2 seconds flat, and I was never able to get one. But then when my Steam Deck broke and I sent it in and I got the new one that came back had the good fan, so that problem really fixed itself. But yeah, all of that is to say, unless you can fix an issue yourself, the only option you really had was to go on the Steam forums for support, ask for help, and then wait for them to respond, and then send it in, and then wait for it to get sent back. And that process takes quite a while, just because they use the same shipping that they use to get the Steam Deck to you in the first place, which is not the fastest shipping in the world, and it's FedEx, so you might have your Steam Deck thrown against the side of a truck and thrown in a gutter before it actually makes it to you. But now things are about to get a whole lot better, because Valve has officially announced that they have their own repair centers all set up and ready to go. Basically what they're saying is, if your Steam Deck's hardware breaks in any way, you'll be able to ship it to them and they'll fix it if it's under warranty, completely free of charge, which I guess is kind of what you would expect. But they've been really good about even fixing issues where someone dropped it, or it was their fault that a hardware piece broke on the Steam Deck. They've really replaced those for free for like 99% of the people that have sent them in. And I'm saying 99% because I haven't seen the one person who hasn't gotten their Steam Deck RMA'd, but I'm sure they're out there. Another cool thing about this is if your Steam Deck is out of warranty and you don't feel comfortable fixing the part that broke, or it's a part you really can't fix because you don't have like a soldering iron or something like that, you'll be able to send it in and they'll charge you for the repairs. Now, if you've ever dealt with like getting your phone fixed or something like that outside of warranty, that usually can get pretty costly, but because the price of the Steam Deck is so low, I couldn't imagine it really being that much more expensive just to get it fixed by Valve. The real news story though is how much commitment they're showing to the Steam Deck. They're setting up a whole repair center for it instead of just RMAing and replacing any Steam Deck that comes in. That shows that they want to keep these things going and strong as long as possible, because even for people outside of their warranty, they're going to be able to get them fixed by Valve, and that decreases the chance that they'll just throw it in a drawer and let it sit and rot because they don't know what to do with it at that point and it's outside the RMA range. I like how fast they turn this stuff around too, because just a couple months ago we saw Valve hiring people that know a lot about the supply chain, and just a few months after that the supply chain issues improved and a lot of the people in Q4 had their Steam Deck pre-orders bumped up into Q3, and I want to believe that that's a direct result of these people they're hiring. So if they're really building out this hardware area within Valve, I think that's once again showing a ton of commitment from them on the future of the Steam Deck. And this is different than the Steam machines because they let other manufacturers like Alienware or Dell, their parent company, make those Steam machines, and that was who you would go to for support, and then they would just make the OS. But this time around they've got to support everything, and I think so far they've done a really good job. And now that they have repair centers, hopefully this speeds up repairs instead of waiting 2 to 3 weeks for an RMA. And the cherry on top here is that they responded to their own tweet because people were worried that this was going to replace the iFixit parts that you can buy, and they're like, no, you can still repair it yourself, you can order your own parts, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can send it in to us, and if it's in warranty, we'll fix it for free. And I'm sure that there's some issues that they'll just still give you a brand new Steam Deck for, which is pretty cool. And the last news update I have for you guys today is around FSR. So I like FSR, I think it's a good technology. I just think if you've ever seen a game using DLSS and how much better across the board that looks, it's hard to look at FSR and want to use it. That issue's really improved though over the past few months thanks to FSR 2.0. There's a couple games on Steam that use it right now that I know off the top of my head, which are Deathloop and of course God of War. And God of War was a game where I tried FSR on the Steam Deck back when the Steam Steam Deck came out, and I ultimately opted to just use original settings at 800p just because it's going to drop down to 27 frames per second once in a while, but that ultimately looks so much better in the long run than using FSR to hold it at 30 FPS. But now that we have FSR 2.0 and I've seen how much better that is than 1.0, I think it's a totally usable compromise to get the game not only running at higher frame rates, but also to improve the battery life of your Steam Deck. Dying Light 2 is the first game I want to focus on because that recently got FSR 2.0, and that essentially made the game playable on the Steam Deck. Before that, I don't think it was playable at all. It was really nearly impossible to get a real 30 FPS out of it, and it would crash all the time. It just didn't work that well. But I watched a video from my friend the Deckverse, and he basically came up with the exact settings that you need to run the game at 40 FPS at 40 Hertz. He calls it his golden 40, and it works flawlessly. It's a really good settings list, so you should definitely check out his video. But yeah, another game that I've been really excited to check out with FSR 2.0 is Cyberpunk 2077. It seems like AMD kind of like announced that too early though, and it's not actually officially in the game, but there is a mod you can use to activate FSR 2.0 within Cyberpunk, and from what I've seen, it looks a whole lot better. So hopefully that official release comes around sooner rather than later. And I asked Deckverse if he was going to do a golden 40 video for Cyberpunk, and he said, yep, 48 hours after the patch that has FSR 2.0 comes out, you will see a video over on his channel. So I'm really excited for that. The other cool thing about Cyberpunk is allegedly that Steam Deck preset that they added in a few months ago is officially fixed. Before, it would just set everything to ultra, and it kind of stayed like that for a while. Obviously, the Steam Deck can't run Cyberpunk 2077 on ultra, but now it apparently works pretty well. Haven't tried it myself yet, but I'm excited to because I want to check out that new Edge Runners update. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Forspoken, Grounded, Hitman 3, the Callisto Protocol. There are a ton of games on this list that are going to get or already have FSR 2.0, but the even cooler part about this whole announcement was that in Farming Simulator, they showed off FSR 2.1, and it gets rid of the biggest issue I personally have with FSR, which is ghosting. Even in FSR 2.0, with Kratos' big bald head, when you turn the camera or throw the axe and call it back, the ghosting is just extremely obvious, and if you're someone who's sensitive to that, you're going to opt for using the original settings at 720 or 800p, which while works better now than it did back in the day, it's going to drain your battery life a lot faster. So hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers, the FSR 2.1 update that has no more ghosting, or at least vastly improved ghosting, makes its way over to God of War sooner rather than later, because I want to get through this game once again before God of War Ragnarok comes out, because man, I am hyped for that game. Either way though, this is a huge win for the Steam Deck. Anything they can do to get AMD's FSR closer to how well DLSS works and looks over on my Nvidia PC, I am all for it, and I just hope we don't have to wait too much longer for this update, and I just hope that the games we have coming in the future have this at launch so we don't have to wait around for FSR 2.0 or 2.1, because that's kind of like the best ideal world here for something like the Steam Deck.